I go to Nerv Shabbos. This week's Parsha is Parshas Tetzaveh. Parshas Tetzaveh describes the begadim for the Kohen Gadol. One of the begadim that the Kohen Gadol wore was a robe, and on the bottom of the robe it had bells on the bottom. Bells, pomegranate-shaped bells on the bottom of his robe. And Chazal tell us that the bells on the bottom, which would make noise when the Kohen Gadol would walk in, it would make noise, and that is to atone for the Avera of Lashon Hara. There were 72 bells, and that corresponds to 72 different shades of white that a person can turn when they would get saras, which is the result of speaking Lashon Hara. Now the question is, and I saw this from Ephraim Goldberg, the question is, if you wanted to highlight the importance of not speaking Lashon Hara, would you have bells that would make a lot of noise, or would you have like a moment of silence type of a thing? Maybe that sounds like it would be more appropriate, like keep your mouth shut. No, don't speak Lashon Hara. So why do we have a garment filled with bells that make noise? Why do we do this? So it could be, so we can answer. I saw again from Goldberg, he brings from the Shemin HaTov, and he says that later on in Parshas Mitzayir, the Torah tells us that the way to be mechaper for Lashon Hara was to bring two birds. That was the carbon that you would bring. So the question is, of course, why do we bring two birds? Why not just one bird? So the Zohar says that the two birds correspond with the bad speech, one for bad speech and one for good speech. So what does this mean? So the Shemin HaTov explains that what this means is that sometimes you have an opportunity to offer positive reinforcement to a person, and you don't do that. Or you can give a compliment to somebody and you don't give the compliment, say something nice and you don't do it, and we just stay silent. So you might think, okay, what did I do wrong? I didn't do anything. I just stayed quiet. But the Torah is teaching us a very important lesson. The Torah is teaching us that a lack of positive reinforcement, when you don't give a compliment to someone and you could, when you don't say something nice to someone and you could, that could be just as demoralizing to a person as Lashon Hara. Or sometimes it could even be even worse. So one of the birds atones for saying the wrong thing, and the other one, equally important, atones for remaining silent and not saying something when you could have. And I was just talking to my wife about this yesterday. It's so important, positive reinforcement, so important, and saying a kind word to somebody. People oftentimes, they just want to be heard, they just want to be seen, they just want to be recognized. That's all people want. So I think this is such a great lesson that we could all take and try to bring into this week. Of course, not to speak Lashon Hara. That goes without saying at this point. But try to say a kind word, a positive word, recognize someone, notice somebody, say something nice to somebody. If an opportunity arises, say something nice to somebody. It means a lot. I know for myself, when someone tells me something nice about myself, it lifts your spirits. So it will do that to someone else as well. So let's all keep that in mind with our spouses, with our children, with our friends, a person in shul, someone just an acquaintance. You see them, try to say something nice. Or, if you don't see them for a few days when you normally would, ask them what's going on. Is everything okay? These things make a difference. These things really, really make a difference. Positive reinforcement is so, so important. That's a lesson that the Torah is teaching us about not just not speaking Lashon Hara, but trying to speak in positive ways and do it whenever we can. Have an amazing Shabbos.